Right. Hi and good evening, everybody. They've trusted me this week, so I'm leading. Absolutely.
What happened last time you were a leader?
I did all right when I was a leader, I'll have you know. Anyway, I just want to start today by congratulating all three of these wonderful people. I think all three of you had absolutely great results, and I take my hat off to you. I think things could have gone a lot worse in all sorts of ways. And hard work has counted. That's I've talked before about how your job locally is to fight against national trends and stuff like that. And there was a lot of that gone on, and 2 Greens elected, and it was the hard work of Stephen and Lara as well. So yeah, fantastic. I'm really pleased for all of you. And Huntingdonshire's a better place to have you guys around.
So I think we're going to talk a bit about some of the best performances. Yeah, but what I will say is that the best performances, the people who've done better than you would predicted, are people who've adopted the Alex Boulat door knocking, old school ground game, regular door knocking, canvassing, because that has results. That's what Lara and I were doing. Before the election.
But it's also worth saying that's not just door knocking during the campaign. It's been months and months. Sure. Well, the work has been phenomenal.
Lara's been doing it on our patch. Lara's been doing it constantly, But since I've been involved since January, we've never stopped. I've knocked on over 2,000 doors. Now we've knocked on over 2,000 doors. Alex Briggs said I do that every week, but you know what? That's the way you do it, and it's hard work and it's fun, but it has good results.
So what is your guys' view of the results both in Huntingdon and Huntingdonshire?
Who wants to go first? Well, what I think is that we were expecting something a lot different. Yeah, we did our predictions. We did the predictions like when they announced nominations. Those were a bit rubbish.
Yeah, we were wrong on many occasions.
Yeah. But I think most people expected that Reform in Huntingdonshire would do a lot better than they did. And I think the Lib Dems did really well in Huntingdonshire, and some of the Indies did really well. Alex did amazingly as well in almost getting 2 seats. So I think you were eight votes short of getting
6 after recounts.
After recounts, which is incredible. So many of those votes were determined by just a handful of votes. So when I won county like 5 years ago, winning by 9 votes seemed extraordinary. But now it's just regular, isn't it? 8, 9, 10 recounts, and so the margins are really close, and I think that's good for democracy, isn't it? We had massive ballots and people having to make decisions.
Well, I'm not sure it is, because it's a reflection of some of it is, and of course tight elections are great, but one of the things I did was a quick analysis on Friday. I pulled some from different areas just to back up one of the things that I thought would happen, which is that people were going to get elected with a very, very small share of the overall electorate in their area. And that has proven correct. In a lot of places, it is the norm for people to be winning seats on less than 10% of the vote of the total electorate. Now, I just want to qualify that, as I have done everywhere else. I absolutely take my hat off to anybody that stood and anybody that's got elected. But you start to have to question whether the system is doing what it should when you've got councillors being elected. The worst one I've found was somebody who was elected on 6% of the total electorate. That's up in Salford.
So I think you're absolutely right. The voting system doesn't work at Westminster. It's really clearly not working at local level. That said, I've there were a lot more split wards, or there were quite a lot of split wards, where not everybody is from one thing. I've actually just posted in the chat my prediction. Now I've only done the headline prediction because it looks a lot better than my ward by ward prediction, but I'm not, not a million miles away on the numbers. I just wanted to pick up on something that Stephen said about about campaigning all year round. It's what Neil Kinnock said, 1985. I remind you, every one of you, of something that every single one of you said in the desperate days before June the 9th, 1983. You said to each other on the streets, you said to each other in the cars rushing round, you said to each other in the committee rooms, elections are not won in weeks, they are won in years. It's very true.
Yeah.
But part of me thinks it's not very. It's a hard. I mean, there's some sort of arms race going on. Yes, if you come up against an Alex Boulat or a Laura Davenport-Ray or a Richard Tomlinson now, people who are going to campaign all year round, it's really difficult to have the resources, the stamina to beat them. And like, we're only talking about district council seats. We're not talking about parliamentary elections. But like at the top end, it's really, really hard to beat people. I think Alex has proved that. I think by all rights, Alex probably, based on national swings, Alex could have lost that seat, but you didn't, because you worked really, really hard and never stopped working right up until the close of polling, almost.
Yes, if only our door knocked half an hour more. You always have those thoughts, but like there's nothing you can do after the election.
You were beating yourself up at the count because you'd given up half an hour earlier, and your running mate Will had lost by 6 votes. And like, what if? So that's. I
mean, it's worth saying that Sam Wakeford, who was a district councillor, didn't retain his district council seat, but he was also running for Huntingdon Town Council, and he lost on a coin toss.
Oh, he did.
Yes, there's a comment in the chat about this. Yes, it was like 70 to 69 in the result, but it was a coin toss.
Why were we not all
I just want to flag up this comment from Paul. I'll put it up again. Aren't elections? I don't think they are. I think elections are still won. They can be won on 100. They're not won on Twitter, that's for sure. But I think they can be won on social media.
Yeah.
But I think the door knocking is the thing that makes a real difference. Consistent door knocking. I think Alex has proven that, well, twice now, at least twice.
At least, and the parliamentary campaign as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's other people who've done the same thing. So Richard Tomlinson, like conservative, St Neots has been almost a conservative free zone, and nobody gave him any chance, but he took a seat away in basically my old seat from Lib Dems and Reform by just a consistent door knocking campaign. Almost beat me at town council as well, and that's a result of really hard work. Do we know if Sam Wakeford went heads or tails? Does anybody know?
Apparently, according to Tom on here, Tom's saying it was the drawing of lots and not a coin toss. A coin toss?
What's it?
I don't believe a coin toss is something you talk about in polite company.
Do you know, yesterday I went out in an odd pair of shoes. I'm getting old. Anyway, a coin toss.
What is a drawing of lots? Are they like straws? Is that what they are? They're like a short straw. Does the returning officer have to go and have the lots ready with them? How does it work? Does anybody know? No? Let's move on.
I already left the count by that point. I was too upset about it all. I
was there.
I didn't see Sam Wakeford's result, but I was told it was a tie.
In the state of Nevada in the US, going way off topic now, if an election is tied, instead of drawing lots, being Nevada where Las Vegas is, you cut a pack of cards, and whoever gets the highest card is elected.
Very good. Sounds very exciting.
How many recounts were there before Sam? Because the trouble with the multi-member wards is the counts take a very, very, very long time. My town council count was going on for hours before they got a result. So the other thing that was clear to me is so the night before the count, straight after the election, we have a verification count, where they count the number of ballots. And if you're organised, you can see lots of the votes and you can do sampling. And so you've got all these people sampling the same count. And I was walking along the rows and looking at all these people doing the same count from different counters, but on the same ballot. And it was just it's almost completely random. And like you couldn't see a pattern anywhere quite often because that's how close it was.
Well, this thing, when you, it's like for my ward, for, town council, I think there was 13 candidates for 14. So for four seats. It makes it sort of quite difficult to do because that's I'm just running the calendar, 715 possible combinations of how to do it. So actually the maths behind it starts getting quite complicated quite quickly because you can't realistically have 715 piles. So you're having to count once for one candidate and then go back and count again. And it's quite a thing to orchestrate.
So council newly elected. We need to talk about the Hunt family as well. So on the I made a little graphic for this with a bust saying Hunts, But Richard Tomlinson pointed out that is also the name of the first family of politics because 3 members of the Hunt family were elected to district council, and Georgie narrowly missed getting elected to town council as well. So they're almost like a dynasty. So Nathan and his mum and dad got elected as Lib Dems. Georgie failed to get elected narrowly as a Green, but that's an incredible story as well. So Nathan,
I was really, really very sad that Georgie didn't get back on. I'd worked with her sort of quite a lot on the town council, and she was good. She was putting in the work, and was a really really good person to have on the council, even if I didn't always agree with her. Much as I have the greatest respect for Alex, I thought Georgie's speech at the hustings in Huntingdon was terrific. And I was fortunate. I ran into Georgie just a couple of days ago in Huntingdon. I said I do, and I did mean it. I do hope that she will stand again. She's got a lot to offer in elected politics.
I agree, and she spent most of the election morning on polling day walking around with me, knocking on doors and getting voters out as well. She works really hard for the local party as well, and she's a superstar. So we love her.
And anybody that stands absolutely deserves credit in this election, in any election, to be fair as well. It's not an easy thing to do. You're putting your head above the parapet, even if you're a paper candidate. There's a bit of that where people, you're opening yourself up for people to point fingers at you and all sorts of things. So sorry to all of them. And also the thing I should have said, because we've got Tom on here and a few other, I don't know if there's a few others that stood as well, but congratulations on anybody that won, as well as these 3 beautiful people.
Can I just make this point as well, because the count goes on. Well, you've got the verification count the night before, which goes on to what, 1:30 or something, and then it starts at 9 o'clock the next day. They were still counting, I think, about 5 o'clock properly.
Yeah.
And I just think that they do it with incredible precision mostly. They do it with lots of humour. There's quite a lot of tension, a lot of emotion in that room, But HDC always put on like an incredible display at elections, and they never let us down. So I thought that was amazing as well. So
I agree in the circumstances in which they do it as well. Where you've got these people leaning over them, sort of looking at every last thing that they're doing. Trying to see through ballot papers to see where crosses are. And all sorts of stuff, and I feel like it's not just that they do a great job and they keep the sense of humor. It's hard without being there to understand exactly how difficult it is to be a counting agent, and the stress that there is there, because you can't afford to make a mistake.
And if you do, somebody from some political party or a candidate's going to point it out to you. It happens constantly. People are looking at you every single move for hours on end. So I'd agree.
Yeah. So let's just move on, because otherwise we'll sit here for ages and you will be self-congratulating all night. So let's move on. And you should be, by the way. And you should be. But what about the campaign as a whole? What's people's views on it?
It seemed to me, and I wasn't, various reasons, as active as I'd like to have been, that people were pushing back a bit about national issues. People, I'm sure lots of people did vote explicitly on national issues, and it would certainly have been in people's minds. But people seem to want to talk about, where these are local elections, and there seemed to be more people who wanted specifically to talk about local issues, which is good. There was still a certain amount of talking about things that aren't actually the responsibility of district or parish councils, which was which was frustrating. The thing is, I actually think I was quite worried about this election ending up being really quite unpleasant, because it was high stakes. It's the last one for Huntingdonshire District Council ever, we think, and with there are a lot of reform coming in. They certainly excite passions on all sides, and I did worry that it could end up being really quite not pleasant.
It was not.
Elections are never fun. It wasn't as bad as I feared it could have been.
So I'm sure
it can always be worse, but I would like to comment on what David has said about national issues. What annoys me is not people putting national issues on the leaflets, if people pretending in other comments that I'm not campaigning on national issues when your leaflets say the opposite. And I will say one thing which I said to others as well. Of course, I understand if you're a party candidate, you have pressure from the national office or the regional office, especially if you're a target council, to put stuff that you might otherwise not write it yourself. But there's always a way to actually not deliver content if you don't agree with. If you're saying, oh, actually, I didn't really want to put this, but the party wanted me to put this letter or whatever. I mean, for me, that's not good enough, because, as a local party and candidate, you can actually say, no, I don't want to put that on. And I think this applies to everyone, really. Sometimes you can't really get away with it, if it's an entirely regionally or nationally driven campaign, especially for parliamentary. In certain parties, when you're a target seat, I do get that. But for example, I've seen this in the mayoral campaign last year as well. I've seen how sometimes you do have agency a little bit, at least at the local level, as to what you are putting to every single door. And if you're putting that out, that's fine. I mean, I can still criticize you for it, but that's fine. But then, having candidates saying, oh, I'm only campaigning on local issues, when your 12th leaflet still campaigns on the NHS, that's a bit disingenuous. But then, well, the election is over, but that's my kind of overall comment on it in general.
But it's worth saying as well that Reform, and this is not a criticism, because it obviously worked for Reform across the country. Almost exclusively, their leaflets were all almost identical all across the country, and I know that because I reviewed quite a lot. What they were doing was, front page was about the candidates, very short brief, especially in multi-member wards, very, very short briefing.
Bio style with the photo,
and then flip it around, and it was about Reform's national priorities, and to me, that's campaigning on national issues. It obviously worked for them. It won't work for them forever, and they've got to learn that, and they've got to become a party that's about more than Farage.
Did it work? Did they get enough leaflets out? I saw very few, and they were all pretty identical. Yeah,
but they did
really nasty on social media as well in St Neots, where they started doing lots of this anti-Semitism stuff they were piling on, and people were just turning against it. I've never seen Ricky Ioannidis, who was the county councillor for Amesbury, was just trying to troll the Greens, and the whole town in certain Facebook groups were reacting against it and not wanting to hear that kind of negative national hyped up politics, and the whole we're going to build deportation camps if you vote for a Green councillor stuff was just ridiculous. And I think
I do my YouTube podcast, Change from the Centre, right? And I've done some stuff on this week, and it's got quite a reaction from Reform actually. the point I made about those detention centres and putting them in green areas is let's set aside whether detention centres is a good policy or not. I think we all know what we think of that, but punishing people because they didn't vote the way you wanted them to is bordering on the fascist. And I don't believe the reform of a fascist party.
Don't use that word in front of David, or he'll go on about it now.
I don't believe that reform are a fascist party. However, that particular policy has fascist tones to it. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But also, like, I think they announced it just so people start talking more about them before the election. I mean, it's one of those things to say something like it was completely ridiculous and unimplementable, but then you get the media attention, which is exactly what gets you more votes before the election.
And if I was to criticise the Greens, I would say that they have got to find a way of getting past this anti-Semitism issue. It's a difficult one for them because they're campaigning heavily on Gaza, they're campaigning heavily on Beirut. And inevitably, if you're campaigning on those on those issues as a national party, you are going to attract some wrong ones. But they've got to find a way of dealing with it, because there's certainly, it may not be a massive problem, but even a small problem like that is something that the media is always going to find.
Because it gets blown out of all proportion. Because there's going to be, in any large group of people, there's going to be idiots on the fringes who say stupid thing in WhatsApp conversations, and those people should absolutely be punished and kicked out of the party, but they've got to be shown to do that. So, I'm any hint of anti-Semitism, I think, is completely unacceptable, and it's hard to see, and it has to be stamped out. I agree.
So,
thank you everyone for the comments. I see so many comments in the comment feed. We'll pick up some of those as we go along. It's a very good engagement this evening.
So, can I also say I'm going to talk about the thing that Alex isn't going to talk about, which is dodgy bar charts.
I'm happy to speak about this. My favorite topic.
I did notice you talked about it a few times in the campaign. What is interesting is dodgy bar charts started to get some national coverage, and in particular, some of the Lib Dems. I have to say the Greens were at this as well, but there were some.
Can you hear me out there in TV land?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Sorry.
So cool. Full Fact did something about dodgy bar charts. So and I've just put the links up to that. And I did some analysis of some places in Sheffield, one of which was a Green candidate who was absolutely miles away ahead in the polling predictions for his ward, and he put out a dodgy bar chart saying, "I'm your best tactical vote," which was brilliant, because I obviously misleading, and I don't like dodgy bar charts. I can absolutely see why he did it, because he was trying to pull even more votes into his direction. But yeah.
So I think it would be quite nice if we could have some. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I hope I'm not being too partisan in saying that Lib Dems are the worst offenders at this. But some indeed. Sort of moratorium or some sort of minimum standards on, beyond the legal standards, on what goes in leaflets at election time, because some of what goes on is taking the proverbial. On reform, reform won in Huntingdon North.
Yeah.
With hardly any on the ground campaigning, because that's not how they're trying to. They're trying to do things. They're trying to win with the air war, and they have got a lot of sort of latent support because people are hacked off with how everything is, understandably. And so you say anything that gets them in the press is sort of good for them. I mean, it's almost the Oscar Wilde thing, isn't it? The only thing worse than not them being talked about is not being talked about. On the issue with the Greens and anti-Semitism, and it's not enough to say we will suspend people who are anti-Semitic. It's got to be made abundantly clear to everybody in the party, in the Green Party, anybody who might think of joining the Green Party, that anti-Semitism isn't acceptable. And it's also got to be made absolutely clear to everybody that failing to call out anti-Semitism isn't acceptable.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I've got
Yeah,
I went through this in the Labour Party with anti-Semitism. It is deeply unpleasant because you are there'll be people, it ends up being a fight. It took us years to do, and there are people who I know have gone from the Labour Party to the Greens who aren't a bit over enthusiastic on Israel. They hate Jews who have joined the Green Party. It is a problem that they think they are welcome.
Yeah.
It's worth saying, by the way, with this, that from my perspective, the one thing that Zach Polanski is doing is when it is shown to him, he is dealing with it. And that was part of the problem the Labour Party had, was that in some cases they were doing their best not to deal with it. And I do think that when it's identified, kicking people out quickly will do them a lot of good in making it go work.
So I'd agree. I'd agree with what David's saying about calling people out always, and anti-Semitism or any sort of racism or any sort of homophobia or any sort of that's what you expect decent people to do in our sorts of parties. And so you'd absolutely expect it as a minimum standard. And if it doesn't go on, then something's wrong and it needs to be corrected.
Okay, let's move on. I think we've done that today.
Back to Huntingdonshire politics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we've talked about the campaign a little bit. What about the bigger picture? Should we start with what Huntingdon looks like now compared to what it used to? Did you manage to get that done, David?
I haven't quite. I'm running it quickly, so I realised there was actually a mistake on my map. So come back and I'll have the maps for you.
What about the rest of Cambridgeshire? We'll start with Peterborough, I think, because Peterborough was a really, really interesting result that bucked a few sort of national trends. The Conservatives would say. I actually saw Wayne yesterday and congratulated him on the result they got, and he said they were actually hoping for a little bit better. But I think the Conservatives gained seats in Peterborough, which nobody was expecting.
I mean, I actually think it's not. I actually didn't think it was unnecessary. Like, I actually expect them to do well. Paul Bristow won on every ward in the mayoralty in Peterborough. We kind of assume it's like an overall Labour or left area, but actually, I think with that kind of brand of politics, like when Paul Bristow ran for mayor, obviously, and won as mayor, he actually won in every single ward. So I think if you actually have candidates there, well, Tory candidates who do the work locally and are well known locally, I think you're in a very good position to win with that kind of branding if you do the work. Again, I don't know any of them personally. I don't know what kind of strategy they had, but it kind of starts from like a kind of a brand that's the Paul Bristow Peterborough brand, I guess, which for some reason it did work in the mayoralty.
I think this is a different because it's not about Paul Bristow. Paul obviously did better because he was the member of parliament.
Yeah, but he was very present in the campaign for locals as well.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't on the ballot paper.
Yeah,
and that makes a big difference. And I think it'd be wrong to say that the Conservatives didn't have a good result in Peterborough. They did. They gained ground, and when you look at the Conservatives had a horrible night elsewhere, despite what they're saying, and for Peterborough to come out like that, and actually for the Conservatives to hold on in the way they did in Huntingdonshire as well, you've got to say. That's a pretty good night.
What's that going to do to the control of Peterborough Council then, City Council?
No overall control.
It's still no overall control. It's a little tighter.
Is going to be able to hang on as leader there because she's been doing a great job.
My gut instinct is that is correct. Reform did make gains in Peterborough though, and the Labour Party went backwards. I think there were 6 seats that the Labour Party were defending, and they won 2.
Yeah.
So they went backwards 4, and some of that was Reform gains. I think it was all Reform gains actually. And it's worth saying that former UKIP councillor for Ramsey, Peter Reeve, was elected in for reform in Peterborough, which will make life interesting in Peterborough politics.
Why is that? I don't know the background.
Well, he was just quite a controversial character, was Peter. And if you remember reform in Ramsey, UKIP in Ramsey, when that county council election happened in 2013, where they won 12 seats, Peter Reeve ended up on the front page of the Sun talking about how he cleaned toilets and as a ward councillor and stuff like that. He's
interesting.
So a good night for the Conservatives in Peterborough. Yeah. South Cam's a great day for the
Lib Dem one-party states there. Well, actually, with two
which is not healthy, though, is it? I mean, it's democracy, but it's not very healthy to have no opposition, basically.
It's also very, very difficult. Every time I've seen councils really, really fall apart, a lot of the time it's one-party states where you've got this diverse group, you've got an ambitious group where very, very few of that very large group can have positions of responsibility, and you start to see all sorts of difficult things happen. To be fair, they've been pretty strong all the way up until now, with that, and they've had strong majorities. I hope they can continue it, and keep things together.
On sort of one-party states, this is going back some time and different politics and so on. So one of the ways the BNP did well, or one of many reasons, but one of the reasons they had a breakthrough in Barking and Dagenham 20 years ago was Barking and Dagenham was, to all intents and purposes, a one-party state. It was a Labour Party fiefdom, and councillors got lazy, and this is something that they themselves have admitted, and weren't doing the sort of the basics. Now they then started doing that and were much more active, much more visible, and then Barking and Dagenham literally became a one-party state because at the following elections Labour won literally every seat. But when you have a one-party state, if people, I mean, it's not good. It's risky if they're listening to the opposition and so on. That the loyal opposition, as it were. That is helpful. You do get better results, but it's also dependent on whether they are being active in their wards and listening and talking and being around. Makes a big difference. About how viable it is, whether another party can get in, and it doesn't have to be someone as unpleasant as the BNP. So I think a lot of it comes down to, not relaxing when you're in that power, but almost sort of doubling down and saying, okay, we've got we've got the one party state that can be actually quite fragile. If it can suddenly all go very quickly. Going back to Barking and Dagenham, if the BNP had run in more seats, there's an outside chance they could actually have been the largest party, not a majority, but the largest party. So it's risky. Now, South Cams, the demographics, I don't think are favourable for reform. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
they've always the right of centre, the more right of centre parties have always been resisted in both South Cams and in Cambridge City. They've never done well at all. It's why in a lot of places across the country the Labour vote went to reform, but actually, if you look at what happened in Cambridge City. The Labour vote went to the Greens, and that is what you would have expected in Cambridge City. To be fair,
I would say actually, if you look at some of the results, not all in Cambridge, let's say Petersfield, where Cameron Holloway, the former leader, lost his seat. Actually, the number of Labour votes states the same. What the Greens are able to do is energize non-voters and voters usually don't show up for elections as well.
Yeah.
It depends a bit on the seat, but actually, normally in a local election, you would win with 1,200 votes in a Cambridge seat. Now the Greens actually get more than that, so there were Greens getting 1,300 or 1,400 in a local election seat, even if the Labour vote stayed as a winnable figure in a previous election. So it's actually very interesting in terms of the higher turnout, the mobilization of non-voters, as well as perhaps direct transfer to, from Labour.
There was some evidence that that's what Reform were targeting in the local elections, that, Reform were deliberately targeting people that don't normally go out and vote, and you've got to say it worked for them.
Yeah.
There's a trouble. The trouble with that strategy is you've got to keep them coming out and voting every time, and that's where I think they've got a problem.
Possibly, there is an advantage to being the incumbent. I mean, that you can to use Teddy Roosevelt's term, it's a bully pulpit. You can use that, and also if you're a good councillor, that helps a lot as well.
Yeah. So I did a radio interview after the 2017 county council elections. Obviously, I was well gone from the scene by then, but one of the things that we had a conversation about was about why is it that that UKIP did so badly, and one of the reasons was there was no sign anywhere of any sort of incumbency vote for UKIP councillors. As soon as they got into difficulty, those councillors just lost every, huge numbers of the votes, because people didn't look at them and think, fantastic ward councillor, I'll vote for him.
Yeah. So good night for the Greens in Cambridge. What happened in Huntingdonshire?
If you give me just a moment, I will show you what happened. But do make a start, and I will come with you. I'll be with you in just a moment.
Good.
I mean, the upshot of it is Huntingdonshire is still in no overall control. The balance is very, very delicate again.
Almost 50-50.
And it looks like it will be probably some sort of minority administration, I would have thought. I don't know what sort. There'll obviously be discussions going on about who's involved in that and who isn't. But my gut instinct is, well, it will be some sort of minority administration. I can't see I can't see an administration with Reform and the Conservatives in finding enough partners to go into and to gain power.
Well, I can give you some insight into this. He says, reading it off of his phone, this is what Lara told me earlier, who's involved, who's our leader of the Greens in Huntingdonshire. She says, coalition negotiations are in progress and feeling positive.
Okay.
That's it.
And anyway, this is what Huntingdonshire looked like in May 2022.
So, and the yellow is independent. Sorry, grey is independent. Purple is SNIG. So it's independent. I think I've got this right, but don't completely hold me to it. And this is where we are now.
So a lot more yellow.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got the light blue, less independence. What this doesn't show, of course, is the margin of victory. Some places more convincing than others. So yeah, but that's more or less what's happened. And as you can see, my graphics don't properly fit on the screen because you've lost the thing. The other thing, of course, is unfortunately, so Labour at the 22 elections, we had 4 councillors. One defected to join the Lib Dems, and we have a new Labour councillor in St Ives South, in Alex. And unfortunately, well, at least from my point of view, Labour lost our 3 councillors in Huntingdon North, and we've got 3 reform councillors, which is that light blue block there.
there's one thing that this has in common with the county council elections a year ago, and that is this little red blob that stands out amongst all the others. So that's Alex bucking the trend again. It's brilliant. It's lovely to see.
And two green blobs as well, I would say.
No, absolutely. There was a green blob before, though. There's two, but they do.
They're quite a lot bigger green blobs than they were before, though. So that's.
And one thing I will say is trying to get Huntingdon into a hex map, or Huntingdonshire into a hex map, is bloody hard work, because it's so like Yaxley and Ramsey, obviously because they're more rural, are massive. If you look at and whereas like Huntingdon North or Huntingdon East, in terms of the seats, they're the same, but trying to get the geography to work was pretty challenging.
Well, somebody has pointed out that there's an error on here, and I just to say to him, it's worth saying. Listen, he's done a great job, and it shows the overall trend, and I think that's the important thing. And I just want to drag this up. I know there are errors in this. This was I was sort of rushing to get it finished while we were chatting. There are definitely errors in this. It shows the overall picture, and I would say this comment from Sim UK. There's certainly within South Cams there is a sense that part of the reason for the rise of the Lib Dems is a change in demographics because of growth. Yeah. I don't know how true that is in Huntingdonshire.
Well, it's true. It's in St Neots East as well. It's that where we are. My political career has been starting in St Neots East as an independent and as a Green, because these people are largely people moving in from outside the town or younger demographics who have more progressive tendencies. David is very clever.
Thank you, Kerry.
I mean, one of the things that's just to comment on the Lib Dem stuff is that at least three of the councillors obviously were sitting councillors who used to be independents and then defected, and they're re-elected, and many of them with actual personal vote as well, and very well known in the area. So that's one of the other factors for the increase in
some of those people lost their seats. So Sally Howe went from independent to Lib Dem in Yaxley and narrowly lost her seat. Martin Hassel in Buckton went from being a Lib Dem at the last election, independent, and won his seat as well. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, that was a very, very good, impressive result. I think. I didn't expect that.
Meadow, who went from Labour to Lib Dem, lost her seat. I say one of the surprises for me was that the Stukelys returned 3 Lib Dems. I thought that they would. I thought that was going to be much more mixed.
Yeah.
But because you had it was like there'd been 3 independents before. 2 of the independents, Tom Sanderson and Anne Blackwell, joined the Lib Dems with and then an extra person came in as a Lib Dem to replace Steve McAdam, who was standing down. Tom Sanderson particularly is another person who does the work. He goes and knocks on doors.
Absolutely. So another anomaly. So if you look at the kind of the south of Huntingdonshire, where we're all based, apart from Martin, it's largely progressive Green, Labour, Lib Dem, Independents, but you've got obviously these urban areas, or some of the areas with the most social deprivation. So the Oxmoor in Huntingdon, Amesbury have returned Reform councillors. What about Brampton? Has Brampton got, what sort of demographics has that got? Because that was a bit of a surprise to me.
No, Brampton historically has been a Lib Dem seat in the past.
Yeah, I would have thought it was the Heartland. That was a surprise.
Yeah, Peter Downs was the county councillor there for a number of years. Lovely chap, Peter, ex-head teacher. But so I remember Brampton in the past being Lib Dem. So I don't think it should be a surprise that it's gone back. One of the things
it's gone Reform, isn't it? Hasn't it gone Reform? Brampton.
No, I think Brampton went Lib Dem.
Oh, was it? Okay, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's worth saying. Well, I don't know whether it was Lib Dem before then or not. it's worth saying that the other thing that this shows, and I think the success in South Cams as well, is that the Lib Dems can be very, very hard to get to knock down once they get their feet somewhere, and I think this shows that, and that probably the Lib Dems will be looking at this and thinking about 2019 now.
19.
Sorry,
Yeah, that'll be the general 2029. Sorry, general election. Yeah.
My stream glitched for a minute there. You were saying about Amesbury, which is where I used to live. It'll be. Oh, I haven't looked yet. It'll be interesting to see what the turnout was for Amesbury, because it's, you know, there are parts of Amesbury which are, you know, are definitely have challenges. But there's parts of Amesbury which are really quite, you know, really quite nice, really quite, you know, and so on. It's just like, in the same way you've got the Oxmoor as a big estate, you've got Duck Lane, which is where I used to live, as a big estate, and the Duck Lane is better laid out than the Oxmoor, but it's still, some of the features of the layout lend themselves to a feeling of insecurity and, you know, make antisocial behavior more likely. I think it's not you know, not, and that you can see there, combined with the sort of economic situation, causes problems.
So,
and also, I am also going to say that there's an issue there with places for people as the main landlord and so on, as the main social landlord, and it's the thing which is, you know, places aren't generally in a very good state of repair. I mean, like, and you see it as you as you go around, and
yeah, it's so it's worth saying, because you asked, I did a quick check, and Google AI is telling me, with a link to the Hunt's election page, that the turnout in Amesbury ward was 35%, which is actually not bad.
It's on a low. Most people are about 40, so it's a bit lower than most, I think, but it's still decent, isn't it, for a local
I'll tell you what, in Finland we would be lucky to get 37% in our seats when we have elections.
Well, it was much higher across so many wards than 2022. And I think that's the intensity of campaigning as well. I don't think I've ever seen 12 leaflets in Somersham from one particular party before. So I think the intensity of campaign was
probably to do with the number of candidates as well.
Yeah.
How much of that as well is that these are the last elections before the unitaries?
I don't think that would have been particularly noticed. I have to say, it was mentioned in a few leaflets, but I don't think it was a highlight anyway. It wasn't. It wasn't anybody's biggest profile issue. I don't think it was put in a lot of places as a bullet to say this is something to bear in mind and something to think about when you're thinking about who you put a cross against.
So
I had it in my own leaflet in St. Ives South, but as a informative point, this is the last election, you know, why would I make it a big issue? And I've seen others have done the same. It's interesting, like some people said they've never seen this number of leaflets in an election in Huntingdonshire before, but I think this depends which seat you're in, really, and how hotly contested it is, of course.
So we've got 54 seats in Huntingdonshire, which means you need to have technically more than 27, don't you?
I thought it was 52 in Huntingdonshire.
52, so 26. You need, so you need, so like 27 will give you a majority then, and there's not many combinations that do that, is there? So Lib Dems 20 plus 4 independents plus 2 Greens plus 1 Labour would be 27, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So the most, so just on the numbers, not on their policies, the most viable, stable coalition, I think, is Lib Dem Conservative.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I actually agree in terms of stability, because I think anything else, obviously, let's say, Lib Dem Green Independent coalition depends who shows. You have to have everyone showing up on every single vote, And I think that's
Well,
the difficulty.
is that true though on a cabinet system? Because how much I know you're new to this district council stuff. How much is really decided at full council?
No,
It's
I
about
meant on
getting
like
a
voting
leader.
for.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
if you
voting for leader and the budget,
that
basically.
happens at the AGM. You get a leader and a chair,
Yeah.
and committees. After that,
Yeah,
most
after
of
that, it's
the
fine. I
authorities
think, yeah.
come through cabinet, which is
it's setting the annual budget is
Yeah.
probably the big one that you get through every time that has
But
to be
this-
done at full council.
that's
You've
true.
also then got you're going through your local plan at the moment. Your local plan will have to be agreed by full council. That's the one that could get a bit iffy.
But budget's not necessarily such a big issue because we're in the we've got a year for LGR and lots of the budget is going to be constrained by national government stuff as well. There's not going to be that much latitude. It's almost like last year's budget or the budget we just set is almost the final budget. So budget's not, there's much less latitude to play around with the budget in the final year. The other thing to consider is it worth getting into dodgy coalitions that you might regret when we're probably or possibly going to go to elections next year? That's the other issue. A Conservative Lib Dem coalition might look good on paper, but try and explain to people who remember the Cameron Clegg coalition and austerity while you're doing it again for a year in administration of a council which is winding up soon would also seem to be not the most intelligent option, I would think, but I don't know. I'm not involved.
So how likely do you think that is to happen? I know what I think,
Unlikely.
but you guys talk from within. Yeah, when you think about this is how I would look at it. When you think about why the coalition for the last 4 years was put together, which was about anybody but the Tories, basically. Obviously led by the Lib Dems as the biggest party. I just can't see a situation where that changes and all of a sudden the Lib Dems leap into bed with the Conservatives. I just can't see it.
And I think, I mean, again, I don't know, but I'd agree. And I think what you could say is that most of the people who were senior people in the previous joint administration are still around now, and they know each other and can work with each other. So maybe that's going to be a factor. Who knows?
Yeah. By the way, I remember the county.
Interesting.
I remember the county council having a massive problem once with putting together and getting a budget through the council when it was hung. It was when Steve Count was leader, and I think eventually on the standby budget council meeting that they had in the diary. So the second council meeting, or it might have been very, very late at night on the first one. They persuaded one of the UKIP guys to jump ship and support the budget very, very delicately. And a lot of that, I'll be blunt about it, that was about people playing politics and trying to stop a budget going through. And that's the problem when it's that tight. If somebody wants to try and stop a budget going through, they'll do it.
But that also assumes that.
Sorry, I know it's a much lower level, but I did manage to get a budget meeting. So for Huntingdon Town Council, when there was a proposal for a big precept increase, one of them, we were there till after midnight. And I think it took us 3 goes to get a budget through.
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't playing politics for what it's worth. Sometimes it just takes, and this is a much smaller budget. I mean, the county council budget is almost £1 billion. When you've got to go through things in detail, it takes time.
Yeah, I agree. The county, and I know the circumstances with that Hunts one, and I would agree with you, but the county council one was just people, it was opposition for opposition's sake and people trying to stop a budget going through.
But this constraint, go on, Mike, go on, Karen.
I was just going to say part of the reason for that, I have to say, and I've had this conversation with a number of Lib Dems, was about the way that the Conservatives behaved as the lead group at that point. It was something that was said to me about how the tone of the way the council was led changed after I stepped down as leader, and that was a consequence of that.
So it's going to be a very different environment because I think HDC, I mean, you would agree, Martin, you've watched lots of the meetings. HDC has been a good example of a functioning council, yeah, with a strong opposition, yeah, but who did opposition in the right way, yeah, and they disagreed with us and they pushed us hard lots of times, but generally, yeah, debates were quite well mannered. We're going to have a whole new bunch of reform councillors in there now, yeah, who might be so experienced. I have lots of new councillors. I think there's a risk. Hopefully, it won't, but the quality of debate might change at Huntingdonshire, so it's going to need some.
I
I
would
would like to think that like the quality of debate will remain,
I hope
guess,
so.
civil, but I think you see like other, because you have unitary elections, I think you'll see different forms of opposition because unitary elections are so close, and obviously in terms of like before we go into that process, there's only a few months of actual, I guess, more political decisions a new administration could take before it's all down to LGR. So there's a very short time frame to actually make anything new, I guess, before you go into the LGR.
Part of the issue is not only is it that there's 10 reform councillors, there are 10 reform councillors who, unless somebody tells me otherwise, are absolutely inexperienced around local government matters, and they will be taking their lead on how they conduct politics within Huntingdonshire based on what they see of national politics. And I say what they see because within Parliament, there's a huge amount of joint working goes on that nobody talks about and nobody ever sees. All they ever see is the Yahoo stuff that goes on through the media, and they will think that's the way that politics has to be conducted. I hope I'm wrong, but that will be my suspicion.
So on that, MP, as an MP I worked for, you know, he's died now, Bruce George, who was chair of the Defence Select Committee for many years. One of the things he was really proud of was that they never had a vote. So you had to have a formal vote to publish things, but things were done. I mean, it's a bit different because it's defence, it's the national interest, and so on. But things were done on the basis of consensus, and you can do that. This was different parties working together. It can happen.
Yeah, I'll put that quote up from Julie because I absolutely agree with this. By the way, I think that the council last year, and I see a lot of councils, but the Huntingdonshire the last 4 years has been it's one of those councils you sit and watch and think, yeah, this is a real pleasure. This is a good council where there's proper debate and where things are happening as well. And so I would agree with that.
I'd agree, but perhaps we're being slightly unfair on reform. I don't watch as much county council as used to, but it hasn't been particularly. I mean, there's a few occasions where things have got reported in the press, and there's been some quite serious things said in committees, I think. But in general, has the standard of debate declined at county council? It's very different there than I would know. I know.
I think it's just different politically, and I think what changed the style of the debate is the new administration, and that's my view as an opposition councillor compared to the joint administration. I actually, and to be fair, because it's not a secret, I'm not willing to work with reform in any coalition, but I think on county council, apart from like the stuff that's been reported in the press, most councillors actually haven't said much, so I don't think it actually decrease the quality of debate, but it's just changed, like the administration has changed. And one thing I would say as well, because people often criticize negative campaigning or opposition, the role of opposition is to actually be robust and to challenge the administration. So like I would make no apology for actually pointing out misleading claims or lies or otherwise. And I know I've been criticizing the campaign for this, but I think the opposition has a role, including opposition from the right and from the left, to actually be, in a civil way, actually scrutinize, hold the administration to account, and do his job. Opposition that's silent is not opposition.
Absolutely.
No, I would agree. Go on, Stephen.
So I was going to say, and while we're being fair on people, so if anything, perhaps the quality of debate might have improved at county council, because when I was on county council and I was chair, the Conservative group there, led by my friend Steve Count, who is an excellent councillor, the quality of debate wasn't great, and it was quite angry, and it was quite toxic at times, and so it can come from anywhere. So it's not always fair to point the finger at reform, and let's just hope with a new bunch of councillors we can all work together. We can all disagree agreeably, yeah, and come to do the best for our
But the other thing, and I've said this elsewhere, one of the things that will happen with the reform group is what happened at the county council, which is the reform group in itself, although they will probably be outwardly loyal, what you'll find is some of the people within the reform group will sit and look around them and they will think that they don't belong there. And that happened at the county council, and it happened in a lot of other places as well. That's how the Conservatives managed to get Simon Bywater, who we know is an excellent councillor, but there were others that jumped ship as well. So I think some of that will happen as well, because the reform, I'm not going to slam reform overall. There will be some really good councillors amongst reform councillors. There'll be some that aren't so. And what I suspect will happen is, as reform starts to drift in popularity, and that is despite the fact they've had a great set of election results, there are signs of that happening elsewhere. Some of those good councillors will be looking around them and thinking, I don't belong here.
Yeah. Well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I pick up on that? I think that is important. There absolutely will be good, honest. I may disagree with them strongly, but I think there is you do have to look at reform's policies nationally, and it's like, okay, a lot of people are members of reform or candidates or councillors or voters for reform for, like with all parties, for lots of different reasons. And there is a lot of frustration with how things are in the country, rightly. But you still have to look at the stuff that reform are coming out with nationally. Some of it is some of it is really, I say, okay, and I get it. I know I'm the original bleeding heart lefty, but it's
you're not the original, David, because you're not that old.
I remember when this was all pterodactyls, but you know what I mean. Some of the stuff they're coming out with is really, nationally, and the way they're doing it is deeply unpleasant. And I would agree with something you said earlier, Martin. Reform are not a fascist party. However, I think they are a populist radical right party, and they need to. Well, they need to. They don't care what I think, but no particular reason that they should. But there are people who are more and less populist, radical, and right. And so, like I said, some of the stuff that some people in reform have come out with is like stuff that you'd have got in Der Sturm, in the sort of Nazi Party newspaper. It's deeply unpleasant.
But it is also worth saying that these guys have been elected. They've been elected with the mandate based on the system that we've got, and we've that they deserve a chance to prove themselves or otherwise. And let's judge them on what they do rather than what we fear they might do.
I agree. And Julie says, I think she's saying here, there are good reform councillors at county council, and you can see in their attendance records, and maybe that's going to be one of the benefits of having a closely hung council, is that people are going to have to turn out, aren't they? They're going to get whipped into turning out, or whatever happens, or disciplined into turning out. So, and I think one of the problems at county council and at district council is being in opposition is pretty tough and pretty boring. We're never winning any votes, and people tend to drift away by the end. So keeping everybody actively involved and having the possibility of winning debates, I think, might keep it more exciting.
I think I agree with Stephen. I think it's actually very good to have the numbers so close for debate and democracy, and that's why I'm very critical of one-party states, whether it's one-party states, former Labour councils in London, or one-party states, South Cambridgeshire, really councils, because it's very. I would still be the person showing up and reading the papers, but I know that some people feel demotivated if you can predict every single vote all the time, and you have no chance of doing any amendment because you're all in the same party anyway. So then, what's the point of having some of the debates or motions or amendments because it's a one-party state. And I think this is something my colleagues said who are in Labour supermajority councils in London. Then the kind of internal divisions became more important because you didn't actually have debate or meaningful debate in the council in that sense.
My worst experience of politics, it was my latter period as a Fenland district councillor, where there were a number of issues, but one of which is, you know, Fenland as a one-party state and how it behaved at that time was absolutely dreadful. And you know my views about Fenland now. I think the lack of opposition at Fenland is and there are some great independents and great Lib Dems there, but overall there's not enough of it. And the council lacks imagination, lacks drive as a result of it. And that's what I think opposition will give you.
I mean, I'll go going back to something we started with. Part of that is the electoral system.
Mm.
I agree. And one of the things that I have said on my other YouTube video, that's a second plug in an hour or so, I apologize. But one of the things I've said is, you know, Keir Starmer's got to start doing something, and he's got to start making changes. And one of the things I hope he does is announce that when the new councils are the first elections happen for the new councils, which could be as much as a year away, I hope that he says that those councils will be elected under PR, because that way we can get a proof of concept going for PR and start to move forward with it, because we can't keep having elections where councillors are elected with 6% of their electorate voting for them. It just is not. It's not viable democracy.
Yeah.
Can I just pick up something? Have I run out of 50p's for the meter? No, I'm just big, fat, and lazy, and I can't be bothered to get up.
We're going to start just giving for David's electricity.
Yeah, but put 20p in the meter. But pick on Julie's point of view. Absolutely. I'm sure he is a lovely young man, and I might well disagree with him on many things.
Yeah,
you have to, he has joined a party. Now, I know what it's like because I've had a lot of it recently, to be criticized for your party or your party leadership doing things that you don't actually agree with, but you agree with the general direction of the party.
Sorry, the way you said your party in the middle of that, I thought there'd been a surprise announcement.
Yeah, I was going to say.
not yet for David.
I think the chances of me joining your party or your party letting me join are pretty small.
So I just want to make this point about that Stuart says. One of the things that's important in this, Stuart, is you might be right. However, what you have to bear in mind is Keir Starmer needs to win over the whole of the Labour Party, because the party membership are going to be the ones lobbying their MPs and lobbying whoever. And remember that there is a conference commitment and mandate for the Labour Party to move towards some sort of proportional representation. So it's possible that he will look at that and think there is an agenda somewhere, or there is a case for me to do it.
So somebody's just put 50p in the meter for me, but it's taking a while to turn on. Because being very environmentalist, they are energy saving bulbs. Just on a little bit inside baseball, so when the manifesto is drawn up, it has to take the due account of what's decided at party conference. Party conference doesn't actually mandate what goes into the manifesto.
No, absolutely.
But no, it's there. The thing is, of course, we have moved towards that now with Wales. Wales has gone for. I actually don't know it's a proportional system. I don't know the details. They're bringing back the transferable vote or supplementary vote for metro mayors. So there has already been some movement towards it. Mark, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Also, Mark, you don't need a proof of concept for PR to elect councils, because PR is electing councils and the equivalents all over Europe, basically. So we know PR works, and we know it functions well when it's allowed to bed down. And I sort of agree that perhaps proof of concept was the wrong word for me to use.
So,
go on. Are we? I was just wondering, as we've drifted into this, is there something we want to talk about on the national agenda, or do you want to wrap it up for tonight?
Well, what was the most shocking result for you in those elections?
For me, it was me getting re-elected.
Yeah, very good.
No, so
me too.
Where I was, so Leanne Simpson who was running as an independent, did not do nearly as well as I thought she would.
Yeah,
and I thought she was going to. I thought she would beat me. I was generally quite surprised. I want to say I was surprised. I'd written a post saying, a concession post and all of that, and I then had to very quickly put one together that said, "Oh shit, I've won." So I was very pleasantly surprised, but I was not expecting it. So yeah,
the ones that surprised me were the ones that bucked the trend, and there was some in and around London as a good example. Harlow was one. Harlow was quite a tight council before the election, and the Conservatives won every single seat they stood in that was up, and it's now a huge Conservative majority. And there was some in London where the where the outcome was quite tight. It was a Labour, mostly where there were Labour Conservative fights, where the only candidates that were elected were Labour and Conservative. And that's part of the reason why I do think a lot of the Green votes and a lot of the Reform votes are protest votes, because where the outcome of the election was uncertain, and where your vote really mattered if you voted Conservative or Labour, people did actually vote either Conservative or Labour. And that says to me, and I know Stephen's shaking his head, he disagrees with me, but I do think that the left of centre and right of centre parties in the Green and Reform of that sort of ilk are there to stay. But whether they will be a major part of the political scene, or partners that are basically vying to be part of coalitions and stuff like that, I'm not sure. I do think there's a bit of protest vote going on, but there always have been protest votes, to be fair.
Can I give you my surprises? So for me, a big turning point in this election was Eton Soken, which we expected to go through Reform, and they picked up 3 Lib Dems, 2 Hunts, and Jeff Seif. Yeah, that was a huge thing, because three less for Lib Dem, 3 to Reform changes everything. Sam Smith, an independent who knocked out a Reform in Amesbury as well, an incredible result. And my friend Richard Tomlinson, a Conservative, a hard-working Conservative, who got elected to District Council and Town Council on sheer guts. He told me this. He probably doesn't want this report, but he was given the Alex Boulat Award for campaigning. So the legend. But he's done it the right way by knocking on doors and being present and talking to people out of nowhere, and revived the Conservative vote in St Neots, and I think that's worth an applause as well. So I know those in a hung council like this, every single one of those results is absolutely critical, isn't it? And changes what the possibilities are. So well done to all those people.
Can I just say one thing about sort of Sam Smith? It's very annoying that Sam Smith has been elected.
Does it mean he won't be brewing beer anymore?
Well, so there's Sam Smith's beer. The person who runs the crematorium is in Huntingdon is Sam Smith. Apparently there's a popular singer called Sam Smith, and one of the people I go train spotting with is called Sam Smith. And now there's another Sam Smith. There's too many Sam Smiths.
This Sam Smith, when I was at County Council, was fairly senior as an officer in IT, and was every time I had to read out my chairman's announcements, Sam would get another award. So I knew Sam even before I knew her, and she is an exceptional person and will be a great credit to the district council. I think some excellent people have been elected.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is I did once email my friend Sam, who I go train spotting with, about the crematorium. So if Sam from St Neots gets an email from me about either the crematorium or
Train spotting,
train spotting, that's why.
Right. So Sam Smith needs to know that anything he gets about jackets and thermos flasks, he should realise that it wasn't meant for him.
It's her. This Sam we're talking about is a her. Although we shouldn't.
Oh, okay.
Shouldn't be the end of these days.
The Sam I go train spotting with is a her. But,
So-
you know, so's the Sam who runs the crematorium. But yeah.
An incredible councillor as well.
So we'll wrap up then, and I'm gonna wrap up by being controversial. So here we go. We'll go round, starting with Alex. Keir Starmer, should he stay or should he go?
I don't really care. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I don't.
Okay.
I think obviously there's pros and cons on having stability as opposed to having. I don't think changing the leader will change the issues that need to be addressed. That's my answer. I think whoever is the leader, the change in the leadership doesn't mean, as we have seen in both local and national elections and the previous governments with the Conservatives and council leaderships as well. You need to ask the question of what is going wrong in terms of your approach and your policy, and not just changing the figurehead or
David?
I'm tempted to defer to the originators of your question about whether he should stay or should he go. If he stays, there will be trouble. So if he goes, there will be trouble. If he stays, it will be double.
That's brilliant, by the way.
Slightly more seriously, there is in the public discourse on Facebook, frankly, in some of the meet, there is an animus about or towards Keir Starmer that's completely disproportionate. I'm not a massive fan. The if you like, the original sin of this government was putting two. I think was the restrictions it put on raising the main sources of tax revenue were too tight. Without changing that, I don't think it matters. That is the fundamental problem.
Mm.
However, I don't, I think there's the stuff that Starmer's done has genuinely been very good, and that I'm quite proud to be associated with. But the animus around him is such that it starts to become a real problem. That is the only thing that's being discussed. If he does go, though, who is the replacement? I mean, is it going to be the King in the North? And would if it was Andy Burnham coming in, I think he would be more able to not be as constrained by the manifesto. If it's somebody who's already there as an MP at the moment, I think it's going to be hard, and I think that's the issue.
I'm going to go next, so Stephen can have the final word. My gut instinct is it would be a mistake for the Labour Party. It's really, really easy to look at an unpopular Prime Minister and think the answer to your problems is to get rid of him. I think he needs to be more radical. And that, to me, includes fixing some of the fundamental problems that politics has got, which goes beyond just policy. And I think if the Labour Party are going to get rid of him, it's got to be, I would suggest that they wait until somewhere like 2018. Let's see if Project Starmer has worked or not. And if it hasn't worked, then you go into the next election with a fresh vision and fresh leadership. And it has to be a leader that can capture the imagination of people, because that's Starmer's fundamental issue, was people voted for him because they wanted rid of the Conservatives, not because they liked him. Stephen?
Well, on a personal level, I hope he stays, because these election results show he's very, very unpopular. I can't believe he's going to turn it around in any meaningful sense. And I think you'd be better off getting rid of him sooner. But, you know, from on a personal level, as long as he stays, then the rest of us will probably benefit. And I mean, I think the local election results were atrocious. He probably should have gone before the local elections to give somebody else a chance. But having done it now, it's a bit too late. And maybe he's going to hang on for a while. Who knows? But I think he's doing a dreadful job.
Right. And so that wraps us up for today. But thanks everybody who's taken part. We've had a really good debate in the comments as well. Hope we've shown enough of those comments in the panel. Thank you very much. And
hopefully soon the new administration, or maybe a new administration or some sort of new administration, might arise, and so we should get back together and talk about the shape of that. Would be very interesting, wouldn't it?
We should definitely do something before the full council meeting, and I'm looking forward to my new opposition role.
Oh, there you go. Right, and so thanks.
No,
don't start the gossip.
I am going to wrap this up now. By the way, I'm
right,
definitely going for it. So, but just thanks everybody who's commented again. It's been really good. I think it's been a really good debate, and I think we should finish once again by saying congratulations to everybody that was successful. Well done to everybody that stood. And in particular, congratulations to these three beautiful people. So thanks all.
Thank you all, and thank you all for the
Thanks,
comments.
Martin.
Thank you.